Welcome to the after party, everyone.
Welcome to the after party.
We had a great broadcast today.
Yeah, a little bit.
Time out lives.
We transferred from doing some terrestrial radio to just going podcast here.
Extraterrestrial.
Extraterrestrial.
Now we're extraterrestrial.
Yeah, and Brett, you were saying that it's like we transferred from a football kind of a setup to a soccer setup, because it's just like boom, no breaks. Let's just do it.
Yeah, well, we went almost an hour without a break. And before it was like about a 40-minute segment with a halftime that we had to stop. So
it's not even halftime. You got to have endurance, people. Endurance.
Well, it's going to be an interesting.
And by the way, the coach in my shout out is Leanne Winters. I was trying to look it up without losing you guys to try to be on. So yeah, I didn't want to disrespect her by not throwing her name out there.
All right, and
but as we have only met virtually. What's that?
Don't forget her name while you're coaching. That's more important.
Right.
Way to go, Leanne. Way to go, Leanne. I have a question for you guys. We were talking about the Sounders being the favorite for going from the Western Conference, of representing the Western Conference in the MLS Cup. So that could happen. Fingers crossed. Don't take it for granted, as we were talking, right? Knock on wood, whatever we have to do. That's cool. But, there's always a chance the Seahawks could actually go all the way. We don't know, and they're looking pretty good. If they keep improving, that could happen. It'd be kind of cool to have two teams going all the way in the same year. I was excited about that, and then I thought, except no one will pay attention to no one will pay attention to the Sounders. They we'll have like a little blip on the last page of the Seattle Times. If you're listening from out of the area, seriously, the Seattle Times is the absolute worst in reporting on our fabulous soccer team, which arguably has more accomplishments than the Seahawks and definitely the Mariners, but yet like the redheaded stepchild. Let's take that on for a second.
The thought that comes to mind, it actually relates to what we were talking about glass ceilings with women and others. But so when I lived in Michigan for 20 years, and for about for a long time there, they played high school girls basketball in the fall, and the boys were in the winter. And then, here and everywhere else, they have volleyball in the fall. There, they played volleyball in the winter. So there was a group that sued for equal access to winter Friday nights, I think it was, for girls basketball. And I was opposed to that. I wrote about it in the paper, and actually most of the coaches and the players agreed with me that it was actually healthier for girls basketball to play in the fall, where they were like offset with football, because when they were in the winter, then they all of a sudden were playing double headers with the boys, and everybody would come after the girls' game was over and watch the boys' game. When they were playing in the fall, man, I think they actually had healthy fan bases for girls basketball that would come just to watch the girls' games that were almost as big as the boys' crowds. And that all, for the most part, it went away, except for the really good teams. And I kind of feel like that's kind of what happened here with the Sounders. If the Seahawks, say, win a Super Bowl and the Sounders win the MLS Cup at the same time, it does take away from where people sort of don't naturally gravitate towards. And I don't want the Seahawks to be bad.
Absolutely.
I like football. I like football more than soccer. Sorry, Garrick. But, I think if the Sounders, just imagine if the Sounders had been in MLS 10 years earlier than they were, when the Seahawks, before Holmgren came in, they had those series of really bad teams.
Tough years, yeah.
Those 1-15 and 2-14 years. And if you had this kind of Sounders team going, Yeah, it would have been crazy. I think the
Maybe.
support the Sounders had.
Actually,
Maybe.
Michelle, I think it goes much deeper than that. And I'm going to call it out a little bit more. You're alluding to the Seattle Times, and I'm going to put this on the Seattle Times editorial staff. This is a fault of the Seattle Times editorial staff. And I will say this, I haven't had any personal conversations with anybody from this Seattle Times editorial staff, but I will say that this is my opinion. The Seattle Times editorial staff in the sports department, some of those people might not like professional soccer. And that is the reason why the Sounders do not get the exposure and time that they deserve.
Does that make any sense? Because
no,
I don't
And
necessarily, as a reader or even as a writer, and Brent, you've written for papers, there are subjects that you may not like. You know, I may not like
liking it
focusing
shouldn't
on
have anything to do with it.
or
Well-
whatever
well-
other weird things, or the classifieds. That doesn't mean that you don't highlight them.
But we're also
Well-
talking about an ideal world too. So
No, and I really do think that has something to do with it, because
and-
rather than making your editorial choices based on story and based on accomplishment, you're making your editorial choices based on your personal likes and dislikes. And this is why I've, for a lot of time, in a lot of different situations, have gotten out of radio and television and newspaper and magazines to a great extent, is that the people who are making the decisions claim to be open-minded, but they're not truly open-minded or truly
Welcome to America.
doing it from
No
doing-
surprise.
doing it from an objective point of view. And I'll pull up another example for you to juxtapose this. The Seattle Marathon has a men's division, a women's division, and a Paralympic
division.
Paralympic / wheelchair division. All of the major marathons in the country have wheelchair divisions. I have never seen on local sports television in Seattle video or even a mention of those wheelchair results. But we've always seen the mention of the men's and the women's results. And the reason I bring this up is because those same athletes that are in the Paralympic / wheelchair division of the Seattle Marathon or other marathons across the country, those are the same people that participate in the Paralympics. So it deserves the same level of coverage, but you have the same thought process going on there. I really do believe that is the problem, and no one is willing to admit it.
Well, I think it goes, I mean, it's kind of like, where do we stop? Because we could go on and on, because I played collegiate soccer at Seattle Pacific University. And we had, of the 4 years that I was there, I only played my first 2 years, but 3 out of the 4 years, we won the national championship in NCAA Division II, which is no small feat. Okay, it was not Division I because of the size of our college, but we were easily competitive with the Division I.
You guys are
schools.
beating UW and Seattle. Well, I don't think Seattle U was Division I at that point. But
No, not at that point. But what my point is that we won our, I think, I can't remember, I think it was the third out of the fourth year. And I remember listening to Cairo radio, and they did their sports, and it was like probably a 3-minute sports segment. Okay. 2.5 minutes were dedicated to University of Washington preseason women's basketball. They interviewed the coach. They talked about the season. They talked about all those things. And in about 12 seconds, they said, and Seattle Pacific men won their 3rd out of 4 years consecutive soccer Division II title.
See, Garrick, you're bringing up the exact point I'm trying to make. See, if I'm a sports editor and I'm a sports director at a television station or a radio station, a national championship of any kind should be a major story.
Okay, so is it what they don't like, or is it just we have seen as, I mean, all right, Brent and I are, and you, Rich, too, we have been for our career involved in the media. We have all probably experienced a decline of the quality of media. We have seen it go from being reporters to being opinion slingers. We have seen some of the integrity and some of the fine tunedness and some of the rules of journalism just go out the window. And so is this that they just don't like the Seattle Sounders versus the Seahawks, or are they just lazy? Were they swinging, in your case, Garrick, for low-hanging fruit? Well, this is easy. We've got our connections there, Brent.
Well, there's so many ways that the media has changed, in what the last 25, 30 years. I think probably the pressures of the internet and social media have contributed to all of this. Because again, as you said, so much of it's driven more by opinion than any sort of objective value or objective fact. Plus, because you have so much content free online, newspaper staffs are, half of what they were, years ago. And I think a lot more than probably was, I'm sure money has always been a factor, but I think it's more a factor than ever. And I was never in the advertising end of it, so I don't know how that all worked, but I do know that it was the opinion of people in the community that we would cover certain things because of advertising dollars and that kind of stuff. At times there might have been truth to it. I wasn't, again, part of that.
I've seen that a lot as of recently.
But I know, it's like in radio, your business, in Michigan, we had a great little radio station that did high school basketball games, but they would do, 2 boys games a week, and then they would only do the girls when the playoffs started. And they would say, well, if you would ask why, it's like, well, we can't get people to sponsor the girls games.
I'm going to say that I think that's personally I think it's an excuse to not really do your job.
Okay, but you can say that. You can say that, but let's look at the women's national team, who recently had a lawsuit saying that we should get equal access, we should have equal pay. But the argument, and I think that is a good argument, that they're not pulling in the dollars. I think some of that is not because they're not worthy of watching. I think some of it is how they're not being promoted, and I don't think it has anything to do with the media.
Oh no, I think that they're, in a lot of ways, they're doing a terrible job of promoting themselves, and that feeds into the media having an excuse not to do it.
There you go.
Media uses that as an excuse not to do their job. Or I have heard so many times, because I've had discussions behind the scenes with people, well, we don't have time to do that. That's your job.
Well, it's crept into every area of our world. I mean, you look at the Academy Awards now, and once upon a time, the Academy Awards were about giving awards to the very best of the industry, the people who did the best. And now there's all these criteria. You have to have so many of this color or that, and it's like, this is about, this is supposed to be objective. And I think, to your point, Rich, is that when you start playing favorites, when you start kind of using criteria other than an objective standard, and the objective standard, as you pointed out, if someone wins a national championship, that is news. I don't care. It doesn't matter what kind of dollars they bring in or not. However, now I add a caveat, because I think it's important to recognize that if you are a commercial radio enterprise or whatever it is, you rely on your advertising dollars, or else you're out of business. And
but
so
there should be some balance there, right?
Sure,
There
sure,
needs to be
absolutely.
balance there.
Absolutely.
I think too that there does have to be a differentiation between coverage in general and, say, well, especially at the higher levels, like there's a lot of expense involved in producing a World Cup level soccer game, right? And so if you can't, unless you're really raking it in and having the men support the women or whatever, as far as the money coming in from endorsements and TV rights and all that kind of stuff, you really, I mean, you take a big risk. And it's kind of like what college sports is in a situation like that now, where football supports everything. And one of the reasons why they're continuing to play football with everything is because if you don't play college football, everything else collapses. So if you have men's soccer supporting women's soccer because of the way the finances work, you're asking for trouble.
But it goes back to balance, and something you were mentioning, Garrick, about the Academy Awards, for example. It's no longer who's the best, but let's have a little affirmative action in everything. And we were, that doesn't work out well for anyone. You want to point out if there is bias, if someone does a spectacular job or is a better player. I mean, sports is a great equalizer for that. We don't care what you look like. Yeah. As long as you're the best player. And here on our sports roundtable, I think we'd be hard pressed to get a more diverse group. So as people who may be of people of color or disability or whatever backgrounds we come from, and then there's Brent, he's a white guy, but whatever we bring to the table, I think all of us are offended, especially as people of, a woman of color, that it's affirmative action. I'm not good enough to be a sports announcer because I'm a woman. That's not cool, but we're going to put you on there because you're a woman and you stink. That's not good either. That's not bringing equality. It's not making you celebrate color or become colorblind, but it is, saying you aren't good enough.
Well, it goes to Garrick's point, and I'll short phrase it this way: equality turned into mediocrity. Because we're all, if we try to
drop the mic, there you go.
We try to make it all even out, rather than being judged on the content of our character and the merits of the individual. That's what Martin Luther
preach on that.
That's what Martin Luther King was all about. That's what the civil rights movement for everyone was about. And that is what it has to be. Because either the gospel and the civil rights movement is for everyone, or it is for no one. That's why we're doing this show, guys. I will pop a wheelie off my soapbox.
America.
Michelle, I was going to say too, we talk about like our group here, and the fact that it's as diverse as it is without the attempt being made to make it that way, right?
Perfect.
Somebody actually, well, this is the after party. Somebody pointed out in my book, wow, you have a lot of diversity, racial diversity in your. I was like, well, it's just the way I saw the characters. I didn't try to make.
I don't have enough. I don't have an Asian guy there.
I didn't try to check off the list of.
I read your book, Brent, and I don't remember a soccer playing Asian in
I know,
your book,
right?
So.
There was an Asian pimp.
Okay.
Now let me just say,
X.
I'm not a believer in full affirmative action from the perspective of you just need to put people into positions because of their color. However, one thing that I am a huge proponent of is the Collegiate Athlete Title IX
definitely.
What happened because of Title IX, where there was equality of women's sports. For those who aren't familiar with what that means, they
well, filters down to high school and below too.
Yes, that's true. And the importance of having that equity, because it used to be all about boys and men. And so I think that was one of the greatest things to happen in our nation, as far as the sports world is concerned.
And unfortunately, that's being challenged by gender identity.
Oh yeah, huge.
And that is going to be another mountain to climb. And I don't want to see girls and women lose opportunities because of that.
We've had to fight hard for it. I mean, even watching women reporting on the sidelines and intelligently on the sidelines and looking like part of the landscape, that is so glorious for me, because it's been hard fought. The only appearance that some women would have is just, you're the hot chick that just says, "Hey, everyone," and we're so much more than that. We're the players, we're the watchers, we're the people who buy the stuff, right? It's kind of the way it is. Guys, I have really enjoyed this after party. For those of you who are watching the Live from Seattle after party, or our Sports Timeout, or any of our other stuff, but especially our Sports Timeout, man, we love you being part. You can email us, you can like us, and honestly, I would love to have some of you join, just like us. I would actually like to have some of you get to the point where you might be having a guest appearance on the Sports Timeout. The more the merrier. Just
send us your guest suggestions, everybody.
Guest suggestions too. Please do. So, we're coming to Garrick's house for Christmas.
Hey, we're having a party here. The after party will be here. The tree's
I
up.
like it. I'm surprised with your cat. Does your cat?
No, surprisingly, our cat leaves our tree alone. So
I don't. I play with them. I play with the baubles all the time. I'm just kidding.
I know. That's why we only allow you here on special occasions.
It's right. It's true. Love you guys. We will catch you next week. Have a great weekend.
All right. Go Seahawks.
Great job,
Go
guys.
Sounders.
Go Sounders.
Guys.
Goal.